Yes, here there are two aspects I'd like to highlight. One is that pre-pandemic, the repo rate was 5.15%. So somewhere in yesterday's speech, the governor has highlighted that there is a need to reverse to the point of pre-pandemic, at least at the earliest. I think that is the urgency which has come about in yesterday's. That's an acknowledgement, I would say, that the excesses that were introduced during the pandemic have to be withdrawn much more quickly, and that's why I think now we will see some more rapid increases in repo rate till we don't really see 5.15%. So I think the pre-pandemic level is a given, and that would happen much more quickly than what we were anticipating. So in the next 2 to 3 months, we should be there with another 75 basis of rate hike. And beyond that, it will again be a function of how inflation trajectory is evolving. So we do see about 75 to 100 basis of rate cut happening in this calendar year itself. 75 basis is a given, with additional 25 basis likely, depending on how overall, the supply-led disruptions are going to even out or not. So I see a reasonable probability of up to 100 basis of rate hikes.
Obviously, inflation is coming from various fronts, and some of it's domestic, a lot of it's overseas. Whether it's the Ukraine war putting pressure upwards on things like wheat prices, or perhaps a major production hub like China experiencing COVID shutdowns and bottlenecks. How much is therefore within the RBI's control to be able to put a lid on inflation? How much is out of their control?
Yes, I think a large part of this is coming because of the supply-led disruptions. And unfortunately, that is something which is becoming persistent, long-lasting, and sticky. So I would say at this point in time, an aggressive action is something which RBI can take. But it would take a while before we can really see these inflationary pressures subside. Because if you look at the vegetable oil prices, which India is heavily importing, oil prices, which India is again heavily importing, or we talk about the agricultural input prices, which is again feeding into our overall food inflation very heavily. All of that is actually featuring into our headline inflation. And that is something which will be very difficult to curb immediately. So actually, if you look at the data till October or November, that seems to be definitely persisting above 6%, above RBI's upper threshold limit. So clearly there are going to be upside risks, and it will be difficult for them to curb the inflationary pressures. And even with a 75 basis of a rate hike, I would say that price pressures will remain above 6% through most of this calendar year.